Hi everyone. Welcome to Reader Kitab's talk today, and we are going to have a very interesting conversation. We are going to talk to author Shatrujeet Nath about the two books that he's just published. We are very soon going to have this conversation with him. I'm going to add him to the discussion, and I hope you enjoy this conversation because this is going to be very interesting. Before I add the author, I will add two of my fellow people who are going to interview the author. So allow me a minute. Hi, so I'm just waiting for them, all of them to join. I've just sent a request, so allow me a minute and I'll be adding them shortly.
Hello, Ekta.
Hi, Ekta.
Hi, Neeraj, and hi, Anurag. Thank you for joining me today, and I'm extremely excited to be talking to the author. Oh, hi, Shatrujit. How are
Hi.
you? Good evening. Can you hear us? Can you hear
Can,
us?
can yeah, but it's a little faint, but
Okay.
am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible,
Yeah, you are
Shatrujeet. Can you hear
audible.
me now?
You are audible.
Okay.
Oh, I guess if you take those out, maybe that would help.
Yeah, I think yeah, because this is not working, so this is fine. Yeah.
All right. Hi. Hi everyone. Welcome to this conversation today. And this is going to be pretty interesting. And I hope you all are going to have fun. Hi everyone who have joined us. We are Reader Kitab, and we are, today having this epic conversation with author Shatrujeet Nath, who's, published this amazing work of mythological fiction. And also we'll talk more about the author. And this book is in collaboration. This interview is in collaboration with Jeco Publishing House, which who has been, an amazing partner with us for the last, including this one, the last three interviews that we have done. Amazing book collection and selection, and also I have with me Neeraj.
Hi, everyone. Hello.
I have with me Anurag,
Hello.
and I think the author doesn't need an introduction, but just to talk about, Shatrujit is also a best-selling author for his, previous books. He's also a screenwriter and a lot of more that we're going to talk about. I'm not going to give it as just as a part of bio, but very interesting take on this book. So diving right away into it, Shatrujit, when we were reading this and we were just feeling that we were just doing a research on your previous work that you have done, and then I just encountered this book that has come up, which was the Karachi Deception, which is on politics, on a thriller as well. I mean, majorly a thriller. And then there has been a series of Vikramaditya Veergatha, and I just looked into it because I didn't want to pronounce it wrong. So and then that became absolutely a bestseller, and then people started loving that book so much, and this came as a new series. So absolutely a change in the genre, right from thriller to coming to mythology fiction, which is a much known subject now, and people want to talk about it. So how did that transition happen, if we can start that way?
Yeah, actually, first of all, I'd like to thank Ekta, Anurag, and I'm sorry I missed your name.
Neeraj.
Neeraj.
Neeraj. First of all, I'd like to really thank you for having me here. It's a Friday evening. We could all be spending it doing other things, but we choose to be here. So that's really good. It's always good. I mean, we've got IPL on, but we choose to be here. So that's nice. So thank you so much for that. But very quickly, can you give me a little bit of a cap or recap on Reader Kitab, because I've just heard about you. So I just like to know, what's your community like? Where are you based? Where did you start? If you could just give me a nutshell.
That's I never saw that coming to
Never
me,
thought,
and I
yeah, you
never.
didn't think that you would have to answer
That's good.
questions
Because
here.
not the other
I
way
and
always
around.
throw those googlies at other people. So yeah,
and the
just give it to me.
author completely spin the entire thing, and I know you're inspired by IPL, which is going on. So yeah, just to give you a brief idea, we started Reader Kitab almost 3 years back, and I think next month we'll be 3 years old. So we're quite young at that. And with so many wonderful people, wonderful readers joining us, We became, a community of around 19,000 readers now across the globe. Very happy. Yes, so people are writing. Balu is writing the interviewer interviewed. So yeah, so yeah, at that. And it was our passion, all three of us who are here today, and representing the community on behalf of all those wonderful readers that we have. All our avid readers read different genres, so we just started it that way, and then we never saw, the love that was coming to us. We never thought that it would be so overwhelming that we became such a large community. We expanded, in different cities like Pune, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, wherein we do our offline and online meetups. And then we do a lot of online sessions wherein we kind of try to change the status quo. We challenge the narratives. We have very interesting sessions that we do. And we recently started our chapter in Tokyo last month. So
Okay.
we have so many readers there now. So it's fun. So yeah, Shatrujeet, I think, and what our aim was and what our vision is so far is, we just want people to read more, read diverse, and always choose books over everything, just like we did today.
Right.
And it's so important to read, and that is what we wanted to pass on as a message. And when we were reading your book, the same thing came to us, that there are so many diverse narratives which are available today, and we'll be talking to you. We'll be asking some questions regarding that, but how important it is to read, and what best, who best other than the author can talk about it. So that's a small,
No,
small
but I
brief.
think I think it's not small. 19,000 is not small by any measure. So yeah, congratulations. 3 years, 19,000 people. It really doesn't matter. Numbers don't count. It's passion that counts. I always tell
Absolutely.
people
Exactly.
I'd rather have a room full of 3 interested people than 30 uninterested people. So it's just as simple as that, So, but to answer your question, I think you answered your own question. Like when you speak about the fact that you have a community which is 19,000 people, and there are just so many people who read so many different genres. I think one of the things that, to answer your question about, this entire progression from the Karachi Deception to Vikramaditya Veergatha to Warlord of Ayodhya, I think, and I get asked this a lot because typically authors tend to, stick to a particular genre. It's either comfort or they're familiar with the genre, whatever the reasons.
Yeah.
I think I took a very conscious decision, and again, it's not like I sat down and wrote, etched it in stone or something like that. But I think one of the things that I like about storytelling is exploring all kinds of stories. I don't want to explore only one kind of story. So when I wrote the Karachi Deception, I wrote that because that was a story that excited me. It just happened to be a story about a contemporary spy thriller set between India and Pakistan and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But when I finished writing that, uh, honestly, I didn't have an option of trying to do the not the Vikramaditya Veergatha series, but the idea of the halahal. I
Yeah.
actually had that as a trying to do it as a contemporary thriller. But I think what happened was, what excited me most about that idea was my ability to marry the idea of a little bit of the halahal being left behind with Vikramaditya and his Navratnas and Betal and all of that. And I thought that it could make a very exciting new universe, which would be a lot of fun. It would have all kinds of known characters from mythology, but the story is completely different from anything that we have read or heard or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So again, it was the story that excited me, which is why I said that the genre is not really important. It's what story, because we are if readers are looking for diverse stories, I think authors can also look for diverse stories and tell diverse stories. The reason I
Absolutely.
picked up, yeah, so even when I started writing Warlord of Ayodhya, the honest truth is, after I had finished Vikramaditya Veergatha, I actually wanted to write a dark contemporary psychological thriller.
Oh,
And
wow.
I actually have the whole story with me even now as I speak. This was in 2019, sorry, 2020. And what happened was that I was about to start writing that, but that's when the pandemic happened. And that
Yeah.
book requires some amount of research, which meant I had to go out and talk to people in the in the world of criminology.
Hmm.
And because the pandemic was there, I mean, nobody could go out anywhere. And, what started off as an 18-day thing lasted for 8 months. And
Yeah.
so because I couldn't write that story, I said, okay, what am I going to do now? And then I had the story of Bharat, which was sitting out there on my,
Yeah.
in my head. So I said, okay, if I can't write the other one, let me start writing Warlord of Ayodhya. And that's how I started writing Warlord of Ayodhya, which now, unfortunately or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, it's a trilogy. So I'm stuck with it for 3 books, which means a period of maybe 4 years or 5 years, I don't know. But once I finish Warlord of Ayodhya, I'm certain that I'm not going to stick with mythology. I am going to go and
Wow.
probably do that. I don't know what I'm going to do. But I think to answer your question, it's just, you know, I find it fascinating when you look at a director like Steven Spielberg or Ridley Scott or whatever. Look at the kind of diverse stories they tell. In the
Absolutely.
filmmaking business, nobody asks the director, but your last movie was a thriller called Indiana Jones. Why are you doing Schindler's List? Your last movie was Jaws. Why are you doing Amistad? They don't ask those questions. I don't know why people ask authors the question. They want authors to stick to their genres. I
Yeah.
don't think so. I think one of the good things is that a lot of authors are expanding and working across genres. Not just me. There are others who are doing that as well. But again,
Absolutely.
and this is not to criticize authors who stick to their genres. It's just choice. I mean, what kind of stories you want to tell and what kind of
Yeah.
stories excite you. So that's it.
And yeah, I mean, how aptly you put it, I think it is so important. Just like, if authors dive into a different genre and, talk more about it, and, if they kind of explore different stories, it also becomes so important for a reader not to stick to a particular
Correct.
genre. Like there are people who will just keep on reading murder mysteries, or there are people who will read only historical fictions, or there are people who read a particular genre. And,
Correct.
the whole idea of putting this across was mythological fiction is kind of is the thing which is happening so fast. These days you're reading so many narratives coming from various perspectives. You're reading so many things that are coming from different authors, and every take is equally interesting.
Correct.
Every take has so much to offer, and you kind of a reader gets a chance to challenge the norm and think too much about it. And I think Anurag has a similar question where, while we were
Yeah,
discussing this
and
morning.
and just to add to it, one of the things what we think within Read a Kitab community is like we should explore different genres. We should not stick to it, as Ekta was mentioning, and that's the kind of one of the goals we have is to
Yeah.
actually help members to explore different genres. So somebody's reading autographies, more the times we'd ask them to read Agatha Christie, for example,
Right.
going into different tangents.
Right.
But
Right.
but going back to what you mentioned about Warlord of Ayodhya, when I was going through it, I was just thinking like, is there a specific reason you have selected Bharat as a character and you have revolved the story around him? But there are lots of other characters as well. So any specific reason, it will be helpful to know from you.
See, um, what I find fascinating about Bharat, what I find very interesting about the Ramayana itself, or even the Mahabharata for that matter, is that the Mahabharata says it's the story of the Pandavas or the Panch Pandavas,
Yeah.
the five brothers.
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
all honesty, it's the story essentially of Arjun and Bhim. Yudhishthir has a small supporting role. Nakul and Sahadev, nobody even really cares about them. Okay, to some extent, that's equally true of the Ramayana as well. I mean, it's supposed
Yeah.
to be the story of the four sons of Dasharath,
Yeah.
but really, it's actually the story of just Ram and Lakshman. Nobody really knows or bothers about what actually happened in Ayodhya in the absence of Ram. What I also find fascinating, I find Bharat a very fascinating character for multiple reasons. The most important being that the Ramayana happens because of him. I mean, he's the reason, he's the trigger that sends Ram into exile. So here's a character who sets the whole game in motion without even knowing that he's
Yeah.
actually a passive player, but
Absolutely.
he's the pawn, he's the game is played on him. And we never explore that character. I found
Okay.
that very fascinating. I also found it very fascinating that if you look at Bharat, and these guys were all probably in their 20s, when the Ramayana
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah.
Here's a guy, uh, Bharat never really grew up in Ayodhya, in Kosala.
Hmm.
He always grew up in KKR, which was essentially his mother's, it
Yeah.
was a matriarchal
Maternal.
kind of setup, maternal
Yeah.
kingdom. So Bharat never had aspirations of being a king.
Yeah.
He probably didn't even think he had the talent. He had never
Yeah.
been groomed in that space. And he's very happy living a very carefree life in Kekaya. When one day he's told that, your father is dead, your brother has been sent into exile for 14 years, and this is all because of your mother. And now you have to come and rule Kosla in your brother's absence. This guy, it's like a designated survivor. This guy has no clue about how to rule a kingdom. He has no practice. He's never been groomed. And then he's brought to Kosla. And imagine his situation. He comes into a place where the people are deeply suspicious of him because a lot of the people believe that he might have had a hand in Ram's exile. People are suspicious of him. He doesn't have their support. He doesn't have their love. And he hates his mother for having put him in that predicament when he would much rather be in KKR living a happy life. What does that 22-year-old go through? How does he come to terms with this reality? He goes after, one of the reasons he goes after his brother is because he doesn't want this responsibility. He wants to get Ram back. He says, boss, please come back. This is your kingdom rule. I want to go back to KKR. But Ram says no. Now this guy's stuck with that job. How does he grow into that job? How does he earn the love and respect of his people? What are the kind of trials and tribulations that he has to go through to get to that position where he commands people's respect and grows in his own eyes? That is actually the arc of Bharat. From a man who doesn't want to be king to a man who could have been as great a king as Ram. Absolutely. Is the arc that I am very excited about. It's a great story to tell because I think it's one of the most neglected characters. What is also fascinating is because the character is so neglected, there's practically nothing on Bharat. The last you hear about Bharat is when he goes to get Ram back from Chitrakoot. Ram says no, and Bharat brings back the Padukas and he keeps them there. The next time you hear about Bharat is when Hanuman is actually taking that leap to get the Sanjeevani Parvat, and Bharat is there and he watches him. I don't know why that sequence even happens because it has no context in the story, but anyway it happens. And then the next thing you hear is when Ram comes back and Bharat says, okay, here's your kingdom. So absolutely, because there is so little on Bharat, I realized that I have a completely open canvas, which allows me to tell the kind of story I would like to tell about Bharat. And that's really what fascinated me about Warlord of Ayodhya. And I've completely loved writing the first two books. I haven't started writing the third yet because I'm completely busy on a couple of commissioned projects which I'm working on right now, my movie and those kind of projects. But hopefully in the next 2-3 months, I hope I can roll up my sleeves and get down to writing that last book.
Wow.
On a very lighter note, in a very convoluted way, I think, Bharat could be an inspiration for a lot of people who are stuck in their job. So you might as well do the best.
Absolutely. No, I completely agree. Sometimes what happens is that, the idea of a reluctant hero is as old as the hills, from Frodo Baggins to King Arthur, everyone is nobody is so when you get a reluctant hero, and that is automatically, there's a journey for the hero that is there. And I thought that Bharat had that journey very nicely etched. And really the story is not only about Bharat, it's also about all those other characters that, have kind of fallen through the cracks. So like, for example, Keikei, for example, Mandavi, who's Bharat's wife, Shatrughna. These are all interesting characters. Shrutakirti, who's Shatrughna's wife. These are all characters, or Kushathwaja, who's Bharat's father-in-law. I think these are all very interesting characters, and I thought that it would be good to kind of look at this world of Kosala, because that's again another thing that the Ramayana never really explores. It explores the journey into the exile and Lanka, but what is Kosala all about? You hardly ever get to know Kosala, which I thought was the opportunity we had here. So I don't know if I answered your question, but.
And it's such a wonderful story also, the wonderful world building as well. And you spoke about a lot of other characters. The books are full of so many characters. I just had a question which is probably not so much related to the story, but maybe the choice of characters that you had. Every character in the book has like very specific agenda, very specific ulterior motive, very specific aim and goals that they want to achieve. I was wondering that for an uninitiated person who's probably not heard of the epics or who are not well versed in the epics, especially Ramayana, could this be read as a political satire or a political intrigue?
See, I think what happens is that in any story. Okay, before I answer this specifically, I must tell you that if you think there are lots of characters in Warlord of Ayodhya, you must go through the Vikramaditya Veergatha series. That has so many more. I think that has got some 100 named characters. Okay, and who have got
Wow.
at different points in time, or maybe not 100, maybe 70 or something like that. But you know, that really has an index glossary of characters, just telling you who's who are the Devas,
Yeah.
who are the Asuras, who are the Hunas, who are in this kingdom. So it has
Yeah.
that's almost 4 pages of that, just that. Okay, so it's very big. But to answer your question, so one of the things, and this is, I think, again, it's just a storytelling compulsion. When you have a character who is significant, that character must want something. Otherwise, why is like, one of my favorite quotes is by Kurt Vonnegut, where he says, every character must want something, even if it's only a glass of water, right? So it's something as simple as that, like every character wants something. Like you want something here, I want something, uh, and I think that's one of the things that I've been working on. And it's not just me, but any good author would invest agendas in his or her characters, in their
Yeah.
characters.
Right.
So when I looked at Warlord of Ayodhya, for example, uh, I don't know how much of these books you have read, but there's a in the Ramayana, in the Uttarakhand, there's a portion where there is a mention of Shatrughna having killed an asura in Mathura called Lavanasur. There is just a reference, and there is nothing more than that. Okay, it's just there. That Shatrughna killed an asur called Lavanasur in Mathura. I'm like, why did Shatrughna kill Lavanasur? Who is Lavanasur? Why is what is that asura doing in Mathura? So I said, okay, let me take this incident. Okay, I'm going to build it into Warlord of Ayodhya, but he just can't be an asura. There has to be a story behind that asura. Who are these guys? So what I've done is I've changed it from Lavanasur to Lavanya Surya. That's the name of the character.
Lavanya
Lavanya
Surya
Surya.
from Madhupur.
So Lavanya
Yeah.
Surya is a new king of a rival kingdom.
Yeah.
They are allies, but what has happened is that he's always had an intense dislike for Kosla.
Kosla.
And when he sees that Dasharath is dead and Ram has gone into exile, he sees that Bharat as a weak guy and he decides to rebel against him. So Lavanya Surya's rebellion against Kosala is one subplot, which eventually will go back to how Shatrughna is going to go and kind of, that is how I tie it back to that. So I think the whole point is that it's not just about Shatrughna going and killing Lavanasur. What does Lavanasur want? What is his skin in the game? So I think that's really what it is. Specifically to answer about political intrigue, I think the moment you bring in an epic fantasy setting which has hierarchies, you have already built in political intrigue.
Oh.
Whether it's kitchen politics with Sasbahu kitchen politics or Ramayana, or it doesn't matter where. The moment you have built-in hierarchies, you've got politics.
So true.
And with Warlord of Ayodhya specifically, look at it. The kingdom is an extremely powerful kingdom. Dasharath is a very powerful king. Dasharath dies. The heir apparent, Ram, very powerful, is no longer there. What has happened is that you've got a power vacuum. Now, everyone wants to exploit a power vacuum. Allies, friends, enemies, everyone wants to exploit it. And that's really what happens in Ayodhya the moment Bharat comes in. Everyone sees him as the weak guy and everyone wants to turn him to whatever they want. And that's really how, and it's that path that Bharat has to negotiate. That narrow, treacherous path of friends, allies, and enemies. So that's all part of the fun of telling these stories.
So yeah, so many messages also people are writing in the comment box, and they are saying that Lavanya Surya part is amazing and very crazy. So, and yeah, when we were reading the books, I mean, we were equally fascinated because like you rightly said, you don't know much about what happened to Bharat. You don't know much about what happened to Shatrughan. You don't know many more narratives. And while I was reading this, there was this thing that was going on at the back of my mind that when we talk about Ramayana, we always kind of associate it with Ram, and how Maryada Purushottam he was, and how he was kind to everybody, how the Praja was always happy. And we kind of always associate it to, because it was in Satyug, we always associate it to all the good things happening around. Whereas when we read this book, there are so many characters which are built so specifically, and the characters sketching, let me tell you, is so impeccable. It gives you such a deep dive into the characters, because it doesn't feel that any character is just touch and go. So you actually learn the characteristics of the character while reading it. That is such a brilliant thing, to capture so many characters and dive deep into them. But coming back to my question, when I was reading this, I was having this feeling that everybody is kind of doing some sorcery, some planning, some scheming, and I was just kind of, my mind just navigated to coming from Satyug and going to Treta Yuga, wherein Mahabharat happened, and I was just thinking, are these books kind of bridge to between the two timelines that we have, of those great epics that we have read, and we kind of talk about all the time.
No, I don't think so. I have never looked at it as a bridge. I have never seen it that way. I think when I look at stories, when I looked at Warlord of Ayodhya, certainly, I wanted to look at these people as human beings. I didn't want to look at them as divinities.
Yeah.
So the moment I bring them as human beings, all the human frailties, foibles, triumphs, failures, everything, warts and all is there. So when I fleshed out this world, it was a very human world. The idea was not to create a perfect world. And at one level, it also sits well, because what has suddenly happened is that a clearly defined divinity like Ram is no longer there in Kosala. So what has actually happened is that you could turn it and look at it that way as well. That's not how I have looked at it. I have looked at it purely as a human story. But you could turn around and say that when divinity goes out of somewhere, what happens is that that's when, the more malicious ideas, agendas come out into the open. Okay, that's another way of looking at it. I'm not saying that's what I did, but that's one way, another way of looking at it. It's just that. So I don't think I really wanted to bridge the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. I don't think they are bridgeable at all, because I think there's only one character who comes through in both the stories, and I think that's Parshuram. I can't think of any other character who actually transcends from one yug to the other. So it's quite fascinating. So Parshuram is that one. Maybe there are more, and I haven't applied myself to it. So please don't jump at me and tell me, no, you're wrong. I might be very well wrong. So, but having said that, I think no, the idea was not to. I think the Mahabharata is a very different story. The Ramayana is a very different story. They tackle two different kind of issues. I think the Ramayana tackles a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
Actually, so does the Mahabharata. So I think I'm saying things which probably don't make sense. So no, I think let me just say that they are two completely different things, and I don't think I tried to bridge them. No, I didn't.
Yeah. So I was not talking about the epics as such, but I was just talking about the timeline, because you know what, when we see Mahabharata, we always see it as
Correct.
some war happening, people are scheming.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, but no, the moment you actually bring in, like even in the Ramayana, the truth is that if KK can be influenced,
Absolutely.
then you've
Yeah.
already brought in an element of maleficence
So
into the
true.
environment. So what I've done is I've just kind of magnified that into manifolds. So that's all
Yes.
I've done.
Yes. And such a
And it's
brilliant
again,
storytelling. Yeah.
the whole intent is just to have fun and tell stories which are like fascinating. And so, I mean,
Yeah.
at least in my head, they're fascinating. If they translate for the reader, that's great.
So one of the
No, I'm
things you
sure,
have
because
mentioned, yeah, go on.
yeah. No, so I was saying I'm sure, because we had such a great time reading it, and we had so many things to debate while we were forming, talking about the questions that we're going to ask you. We were debating on a lot of things, and we were thinking that's what a good book is like, when you have so many things to debate on.
I hope the third one will also land well, because I've got some very interesting ideas for the third one, but let's see anyway. So,
No, as
Anurag, you
I
were asking
mentioned,
something.
like, yeah, one of the things we were debating more around, like, yes, as you rightly said, right, we have heard about Bharat more around when Ram was leaving the kingdom, and then the Paduka came into picture, and the next one was when Hanuman was taking back the Sanjeevani. Now, one of the things we also thought, like, we have not heard much about the Bharat as a character or read more about it, but when you pick up these characters from the epics, like, what sense of responsibility do you feel like you are writing about a particular character which is not well written in the past, but you are writing something, and it may leave some imprint in the reader's mind. So what kind of responsibility do you feel when you pick up these characters or think about the plots and the
Right.
imagination?
So I think when it came to Bharat, sorry, you want to add
Yeah,
to
I
that?
just wanted to quickly add on to Anurag's question because it is related to the characters also. So in recent times, we see that there has been a spate of narratives on unsung characters, right, from mythology, right, whether it is Sita's sister or Karna's wife. So along with the responsibility, why do you think, or do you think that such narrative perspectives of all of these other characters are also important?
Okay, so I'll answer Anurag's question first about how to do it, and then whether we need to do it, we'll come to that later. Okay. Uh, so I think when we set out to explore or re-explore these characters, uh, our primary job, and I think it depends from author to author. There are authors who set out to provoke. There are authors who set out to explore. There are authors who just want to have fun and tell a story. I am somewhere between 2 and 3. Okay. I am definitely not in a provoke zone, at least not so far. I don't, that has not been my intent with either Vikramaditya Veergatha, which is actually has got nothing, there's no divinity, or Warlord of Ayodhya for that matter. When I look at Bharat, I try to look at him as what would I do in Bharat's shoes? If I were at that moment thrown into that deep end, how would I deal with it? And I think the moment we look at it from that character's point of view, deeply from that character's point of view, we we are able to understand that character's motivations, why that character chooses to behave the way they do. And I think by and large, if we are true to characters, I think what happens is that we automatically become responsible. Uh, on the other hand, if your agenda is to provoke, then actually the character is secondary because the agenda is not
Yes.
about the character. The agenda is to provoke. And again, I have nothing against choosing to provoke. If you want to provoke, go ahead and provoke. But
Yeah.
then the moment you choose to provoke, you know that you can't. There is no responsibility attached to that because you are out there to pick a fight, right? So I think it's that. When it comes to characters like Bharat and secondary characters, how responsible you've got to be, you've got to understand that. So, for example, in Warlord of Ayodhya, Bharat is deeply insecure as a character. He's
Yes.
deeply insecure of Ram because he's been constantly compared to that guy, and
Hmm.
he has always got a sense that he's inferior to him. So I think the moment you get that in, you understand why, and he continues to have respect for Ram. It's just that he does not know how to deal with the with the large shadow of this big
Hmm.
brother. So
Hmm.
I think that's really what Bharat struggles with. It doesn't help that Dashrath clearly favored Ram. It
Hmm.
doesn't help that his own mother at different points in time was more in favor of Ram than Bharat.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who is constant. He's struggling with what is expected of him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like when KK tells him, I did all this for you, he's like, but you don't even love me. Like, why did you do this for me? So it's the mixed signals that he's been getting as he's growing up. So I think that's really where it is. So the moment we start understanding those characters, it just becomes more helpful.
Yes.
And we understand why that character has behaved that way.
Thanks,
Yes.
Shatrujeet, because was one of the questions we were debating more because I was not convinced with the answers of Ekta and Neeraj.
Which
But you
ones?
rightly classified into three buckets, saying you want to provoke, you want to
Correct.
write from the shoes
Explore.
of the character,
Correct.
and you want to just explore and create a story. So
Correct.
thanks. Now
Correct.
I'm very much convinced, and thanks for that.
Correct, correct. Now, to answer your question on whether there is a need to do this, I sometimes whether there's a need to write any more stories and books at all. Look at the number of books we have got in this world.
Yeah.
Why do we need to write any more books? But still we write, right? Because we
Yeah.
think that our story is so much different from all other stories that have been told.
Yeah.
I sometimes go to Netflix and I open and I'm like, boss, if they shut down tomorrow, I could still watch it till the day I die, and they'll still have enough shows and episodes. But still, the next week, new shows come. So it's in the nature of storytellers to tell stories. We don't know what else to do. I keep telling people that if I didn't have the talent to tell stories, I would be virtually unemployable, because that's the only thing I think I can do well. So specifically to answer your question, when we look at these characters from mythology, and whether it's Draupadi, or whether it's Hanuman, or whether it's Vali, for example, or Vibhishan, or Bharat, or Karna, or whoever it is, we realize that we can re-explore a story that we know from a different point of view. Having said that, I must also clarify that actually Warlord of Ayodhya is not a retelling of the Ramayana, because the Ramayana continues the way it does. This is not a retelling of the Ramayana. I always tell people, this is not a retelling
Thank
of
you
the
for saying
Ramayana.
that.
Yeah, because people think that, this is, you're retelling the Ramayana. I tell them, no, the Ramayana continues the way it continues. I am not doing anything to the Ramayana. Ram will go into exile, Sita is going to get kidnapped, Ram will go and defeat Lanka,
That will
and
never
he's going to come back.
change.
That is not going to change. This is a story of, while all that is happening, I am taking the camera to what you classically call second unit in filmmaking, where you go to second unit. It goes there and says, okay, while all this is happening, what is happening here? So this is not a retelling, but again, you could choose to retell the story from another perspective.
Absolutely.
And I think it's fascinating because it brings out narratives narratives, points of view, which probably the original telling has not looked at. I mean, looking at the story of say the Lanka episode from the point of view of Vibhishan is very fascinating. How do you look at Vibhishan? What is Vibhishan's agenda? Is he a good guy? Is he someone who saw an opportunity to actually seize the crown? He realized that, my elder brother has made a mistake and now he's going to pay for it. I quickly switch alliances and I go and ally with that guy. So you could spin this, any way you want.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what it is. Again, it calls for a deep understanding of Vibhishan, and not purely from the fact that, at least I would not look at it that way, purely from the fact that, Ram is God, so I'll side with him. No, I don't think I think Vibhishan's agenda goes a lot deeper than that.
Yes.
But I think that's really what these stories try and do. Look at different points of view, and at the end of the day, there are 8 stories to tell. So out of those 8 stories, if you've got 17 characters, then you can tell those 8 stories, stories in 17 different ways. So I think that's why mythology is so exciting, because you can tell the same story from so many characters' points of view.
Yeah, and also they give so much of I mean, also when Neeraj and I were discussing about this question, wherein why these narratives are important, and we thought to ask you, we always felt that it is so important to read from different perspectives, because that also helps you in challenging your thought process, your
Absolutely.
perspectives. And you never know wherein you find a different way to look at those characters, so like while we were reading this, when we see Ramayana, Bharat is somebody who we always feel that, this character just had to, was given everything, and then he's so nice, he went to his brother and he respected the brother. When we read the book, we are all rooting for Bharat to win. We all are, want to take his side. We want him to sail through, and win it, whatever is happening, to just get out of it, and emerge as a hero, which he does. And there are so many flashes of brilliance in the book, wherein you find those moments happening, and you're so passionate about it while reading the book. And I think that's the art of storytelling, that now you look Bharat with a very different light while you are reading this book, and you are not challenging or contrasting or kind of drawing a parallel with Ramayana, but you are just thinking, no, I want Bharat to win. I'm rooting for him, just like my favorite IPL team. I'm rooting for him.
I completely agree. I think the most important thing in storytelling is, how do you get readers or viewers or listeners or whatever it is, how do you get your recipient of the story to start, you know, rooting for characters? And
Yeah.
again, actually this happens less in Warlord of Ayodhya. It happens a lot in Vikramaditya Veergatha because there are so many characters. You can see there are people who love a particular character. There are another set
Yeah.
of readers who love a different character. And
True.
comes a point in time when these two characters end up clashing. And you can see these readers, like, the readers who are rooting for A character are like, yeah, but this guy was right, that guy was wrong. And those guys are saying, no, 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 B was right, A was wrong. And I'm like, boss, wait, hang on, this is just a story. Don't get so passionate about it. It's just a story. It's like a
I
toy.
was I was actually fighting with many people in the war scenes, or in the fighting scenes that are happening in the book, and I was
Correct.
like, okay, I am the hero here. I'm going to kill.
Correct. I think that really is I mean, if you're able to get people to love characters, I mean, like Game of Thrones, I think does that so very well.
Yeah.
You just start rooting for characters. Like, I completely love this character, I love that character, and So I think that's really the challenge. With Warlord, I think it's a little simpler because it's more focused on one
One
character,
character.
which is essentially Bharat. Okay, you know that your hero is clearly Bharat. Even in Vikramaditya Veergatha, you know that Vikramaditya is your hero, but he also has these 9 pearls, or the nine his Navratnas, where he's
Yeah.
Kalida, all of these characters. And each character, I think one of the good things I managed doing is actually investing a lot in them. So characters like, especially I think there are 3 or 4 characters. There's Vikramaditya's half brother Vararuchi. There is Kalidasa. There is Shanku. There are, I think, about 4 characters. Readers just completely. So I once did a poll, when Facebook used to allow you to do polls. I just did a poll and I was quite surprised at, how many people actually, picked Kalidasa and Vararuchi as favorite characters. Vikramaditya was clearly the number 1, but it was not like, he was 100
They
and the
don't
rest were
have other
20.
favorites.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he was 100, these guys were 60, 70
Oh,
and all. I was like, wow,
wow.
that's pretty cool, so that is nice. So I think that's really what it is. To answer your question, how do you kind of get people to, how do you invest in characters in such a way, give them conflict, give them despair? I think, when you push a character that you love into a corner, you can't wait for that character to fight his way out of that space.
Yeah.
And I think that's really what has, I think, worked with, as you said. I mean, if you really were rooting for Bharat while you were reading,
Yeah.
I think to some extent I managed doing that. So yeah, that's
You-
nice.
I must say that you absolutely have, because there are other characters also that I was constantly thinking about. Like, you have character of Nandana, you have Simhika, you have Dilipa,
Yeah.
all of these characters, and you kind of root for them also. Like, some characters are clearly sinister, some characters are really stuck there, and all of these things. I was kind of wondering that, because the story is so rooted in the ethos of Ramayana and all of those things. So these other characters that I just mentioned, do we find traces of them in mythology, or are they purely your creation?
So Simhika is present in mythology.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
Simhika was supposed to have been, I think, Ravan's first cousin or something like that. I
Uh-huh.
don't remember what her exact relationship was. But Simhika is a character that, in fact, Hanuman meets when he's going to Lanka to look for Sita.
Oh.
So Simhika is one of those characters. I took a liberty of re-looking at Simhika's character because she's also called the mother of shadows. So I just said, okay, I will look at Simhika from a very different point of view. I would not look at Simhika the way we have seen her in the Ramayana. I will do a different version of her, which is what you see. Like she's got these control over the shadows, she's a sorceress and all that kind of stuff. So Simhika definitely is. So I tell you, all the characters who are in the family are real. When I mean real, they exist in mythology. Simhika, yes. Ravan, yes, of course. Apart from that, Dilipa, Nandana, Yudhajit, who's KK's brother, exists in mythology.
Yeah.
So in fact, Yudhajit for me he was probably one of the first characters that I decided I am definitely going to have in the story. Because one of the things I saw when I saw Yudhajit, and I also realized that if Bharat had grown up in KK, Yudhajit would have been a kind of elder brother-like character to
Yes.
Bharat. The character that Ram was to Lakshman, maybe that's what Yudhajit was. So I thought that let me kind of make Yudhajit that sort of a character. And so Yudhajit is definitely there. Abhisarika, the other, the Bahalikas, those are all, fictitious characters. I mean, they're all people that I have kind of made up. One of the things that I definitely wanted to do, like, for example, that's why I brought in a character like Dilipa, and I brought in, what I wanted to do was with Vikramaditya Veergatha, I had still only explored what you might classically call the royalty of, or the palace kingdoms of the kingdom. So I wanted to go a little deeper here. So I'm not going to pretend that I've really gone all that deep, but with characters like Nandana and characters like Dilipa, the idea somewhere along the way is to look at what normal people would have been like in Ayodhya. People who don't belong to the royalty or or of the palace. So I think that was the whole point, with them, and or even Yudhajit for that matter, or Abhisarika for that matter. Like they're nomads. They're like they're mercenaries who don't have a land of their own. So I just thought it would be interesting to look at characters who are non-royalty. Again, this is more a challenge for me than for anything else. I wanted to look at something different, so I just did that.
But I must say it's such a powerful narrative, and the other thing that I was very intrigued was by the magic element that the book has. And
Yes.
there is so much magic happening. At some point I was thinking, okay, I mean, it's something like Harry Potter, where everywhere some sort of magic is happening. And I was just thinking that but that magic that you have talked about is not limitless, okay, and it always comes up with some sacrifice, and the kind of magic that you've given, and a lot of things. I mean, the story starts with that, in a way.
Correct.
So what was the specific aim behind inducing that fantasy element, or that magical element into it?
So two or three things. One is that, for me, fantasy is always, it's a space that I love. And I think mythology automatically lends itself to fantasy. I mean, the moment you've got talking monkeys and, flying fish and all of that, you've already gone into, fantasy.
Yeah.
But before we come to magic, uh, when I done the Vikramaditya Veergatha series, what I'd done was that uh, all the Navratnas in Vikramaditya's court with the nine gems, all of them have superpowers. Actually, the idea somewhere along the way was to kind of explore the idea of a superhero. I always love superhero. As you can see, I'm wearing Iron Man right now. Not that I wear it all the time, but I love the idea of superheroes and all of that. So one of the things when I had started writing Vikramaditya Veergatha in 2013 was that I knew that my Navratnas would all have superpowers. And through the 4 books, those superpowers, have different roles to play, and and they have a major role to play in the story. Once I was done with Vikramaditya Veergatha and I started exploring the world of Warlord of Ayodhya, one of the things I said is that I knew I wanted fantasy, but I was also clear that I did not want to do superpowers, because I've done superpowers. I don't want superpowers. I don't want my characters to have any superpowers.
Yeah.
But now I'm in trouble because I have a fantasy world without superpowers. So how is this going to work? I didn't quite understand that. And that was one thing. So that was one. The second thing was that, and I keep going back to this, there's this lady called Arshia Sattar. She's a Ramayana specialist.
The
she really,
one who wrote Ramayana.
The one who wrote translated. Yes.
Yeah.
So I have the good fortune of knowing Arshia. So she, in fact, launched my second Veergatha book in Bangalore, and if all goes well, she'll launch the last Warlord book in Bangalore whenever it comes out. So anyway, so once I remember we were sitting in a group, and somebody asked Arshia that, when we look at mythology, what do the Rakshasas do? The Rakshasas, they come and वो क्या करते हैं कि हवन को they spoil the havan. They don't kill people. They don't pillage. They don't plunder. Okay. They don't burn. They spoil the havan. Havan खराब कर देते हैं. ये क्या logic है यार? इनको और कोई काम नहीं है क्या? They've got so many other things to do. Why do they go around spoiling the havan? So Arshia gave the explanation, and I was fascinated by the explanation. So she spoke about the fact that how the havan, when you do a havan, there is this concept of Rita, which is cosmic order, and that's a very loose way of kind of explaining it. But Rita is what maintains cosmic order and allows, the universe to function the way it's supposed to function. The rains happen at the right time, fasal achhi hoti hai, all those kind of things. So the havan sustains Rita.
Hmm.
Okay, the Havan is what sustains Rita. What the Rakshasas do is they come and spoil the Havan so that the Rita is polluted. And they can break the cycle of, of the monsoons, all of that, basically to create chaos. You break cosmic order to create chaos. That's the reason why they come and spoil the Havan. So two things I've understood. One is the Havan idea, one is magic. So I'm kind of exploring this and trying to figure out what to do. And I said, okay, what if I have a world in Ayodhya where there are no superpowers, but there is magic. And everyone can tap magic. So one of the things about superpowers is that if I have a superpower, only I can use it. You can't use it. But if magic exists around us and all of us are qualified to tap it, some better than others, the world itself becomes quite interesting because then magic I can use magic to do all kinds of things.
Yes, absolutely.
Then I said that okay, if magic exists, and I say that what if now this Havan, when the Asuras come and when the Rakshasas come and they destroy the sacred fires, what they're doing is they are destroying magic. Because magic is what sustains and makes Ayodhya so powerful. So if you destroy the magic, Ayodhya weakens. It fit perfectly well with this whole idea of Rita, magic, the Havans, all of it put together. So I said, okay, this makes a lot of sense. At least in my head, it made a lot of sense to me. So that's how I ended up doing magic. And you've got the sacred fires which are there in the Homagraha, which are then destroyed by the Asura Rakshasas, all that kind of stuff. So that's actually how, again, it's the whole idea started from the fact that I didn't want to do superheroes.
Very fascinating, I must say. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, I think that's really the journey. The whole journey of storytelling is like so complex. You start somewhere and you have no idea where this is finally going to go, and it somehow lands up, and it all sounds so logical. When you put it like this, it looks like it's so obvious, but it's not so obvious. It takes so long to get to those points.
Absolutely.
But yeah, Chika, that's the whole joy of.
No, in fact, when we were also contemplating, like, what would the author actually respond to? Like, why did they use it? And we had so many theories in our head, but this looks like an obvious choice, like a logical choice. Like, this is how it is going to be. What other way? That's fascinating.
Correct.
And also,
but again, see, I say it so simply. It looks as if I just sat there and it just came.
It just came to you.
It takes so long for those ideas to kind of crystallize, and then even after you get the idea, you have to sit and try and make sense of it. Okay, I understand it. How do I now make it work for readers? It's also clear in my head. How do I make it work for other people?
And also, Shatrujeet, when you read a lot of mythological fiction, you will see a lot of characters in those books, but a lot of characters are just kind of touched and not dive deep. But here, when you read the books, read both of these books, I found this specifically that every character is kind of talked about, every character comes back, so they have a role to play, and you can actually design a character sketch in your mind, which I think is the most tedious task while writing so many characters in the book. And I was very fascinated because so many characters are there and every character is so finely edged. And now you're telling me that the other book is having having 70 characters. I'm definitely looking to read that.
I must actually tell you that when I finished writing Veergatha, so the fans of Veergatha and all, there are some really crazy fans out there. They wanted to know what I'm writing next. So I told them, I'll let you know. When I told them that I'm writing a book on Bharat, a lot of them were deeply worried because they said, what are you going to write on Bharat? I mean, the guy came and he ruled for 14 years and then it was over. What is the story?
That's all.
I told them that, wait, there is a story. Then when I told them that it's going to be 3 books, they were even more worried. Because they said, where is the story of 3 books?
What is the author up to now?
What are you talking about? Where are 3 books? Now those same people who have read those 2 books are like, where is the third book? Where is the third book? Yeah, where is the third book? I'm like, wait, but I thought you didn't even think there was 1 book there. Now why do you want the 3rd book? But I think that's really what it is, that I knew there were 3 books simply because I knew I was going to deep down. I was going to have multiple plots, main plots, subplots, multiple subplots, all kind of converging eventually into one another. I knew I was going to do that. I knew that I was going to have multiple characters. So, and I really like these kind of, large epic settings where you've got multiple characters and it's good fun to play. Not to say that every book is going to be like that. I mean, Karachi Deception is not like that. Karachi Deception is a finite story. I mean, I can't stretch it beyond. I could probably add one more chapter to that book, but beyond that, I can't. There is nothing. It's just stretching it like a rubber band, like. So, but yeah, that's I think the whole point. How do you kind of get these characters? And so I knew that I had a palace investigator called Dileepa. I did not know when I started what he would do, but I knew that he will investigate something. So when I set out to when I create this universe, I look at characters that I would like this place to have. I knew that Simhika would be there as a player. I knew that Lavanasur would be there, or Lavanya in this case. So I knew these characters. Now, what role they would play took a process of maybe 3-4 months for me to figure out what roles and how these roles will intersect. Because just having a role doesn't make sense. But one guy is going there, another guy is going there. There's no story. These two have to meet. That's when we have a story, right? So that's what takes time, but it is also the most enjoyable part of storytelling. The plotting of the whole thing. How do you make sense of this amorphous, nebulous entity called story idea? That's the fun bit.
Amazing.
So one of the things, one of the things we were talking about, like Neeraj had a question, and we said like he's going to ask more about the script writing and novel writing. Yeah, Neeraj, you had a question on it, right? We were talking about
Yeah,
it in the
yeah,
afternoon.
yeah, because you have already touched on your research methodology also. So that was one of the generic questions I had for you. That you are a script writer as well as you are a novel writer. So do you find these processes like very different? So I'm asking from a reader's perspective, or like do they seep into each other? Do they influence each other? And also your writing process. Do you like kind of like have a process and also your research methodology? If you can shed a light on that.
Okay. So first, first let's talk about the script writing and screenplay and writing books. I think writing books is much more time consuming, much harder. It's much more granular because every little thing, like when you're writing a book, you are the storyteller, you are the director, you're the cameraman, you're the special effects guy, you are everything. Because what your output is the final thing that the reader is going to. If
True.
if I have to paint a scene for my reader, I have to paint it out in as much detail, in as little as possible, but in at the same time as much detail as possible. I can't say the sun was setting. Okay, I can say the sun was setting, but can I be more specific about what was the mood like out there? So I have to play that for the reader. When I'm writing a screenplay, I don't need to do that. I just have to write sunset. Now, what is that sunset going to be? We'll decide when we go to the location, and then we'll decide what that sunset is. The sunset is of less importance. I think the fundamental difference between a book and a screenplay is that the book is the final product.
Yeah.
The screenplay is a blueprint.
Yeah.
The book is what people are going to end up consuming. The screenplay nobody consumes. The screenplay goes through so much of work after it's been written by so many people, from actors to acting coaches to music directors to background to everyone, for it to become a final product, which is either a movie or a show, which is what gets consumed. So I think that's really the one huge difference between the two. I think both have their strengths and weaknesses. Screenplay writing forces you to be very concise because everything is about time. It forces you to be concise. It forces you to put in stuff out there which is only stuff that is relevant.
Yeah.
Anything that is irrelevant goes out of the screenplay. In a book, you can have 3 paragraphs describing that sunset, and if it's well written, the reader will bear with you. But in a screenplay, no. 3 paragraphs of sunset is the first thing that goes. So it's a bit like that.
Yeah.
I have actually learned. I think I have learned and inculcated aspects of screenplay into my writing. Anyway, my writing tends to be very episodic. It also tends to be very scene-led.
Yeah.
Every it's almost like you're seeing scenes, and I really like writing that way. So in many ways, it's already like a screenplay at one level. I think that's really the similarity and difference between the two. There was a second part to your question, which I kind of now it slipped my mind.
Yeah, the kind of research probably you put into.
Yeah, yeah. I think uh, okay, yeah. Before we go to research, I think the other thing is that when I work on my books are I write for myself in the sense that there is no one else who's involved.
Oh.
When I write a book, I am writing it because this is my project. My screenplays, everything is all commissioned. I write it for others. That's where I make my money, and that's where the bills get paid. So screenplay, my screenwriting is purely in that space. The other big difference between the book and the screenplay, before we come to research, is that writing a book is a very solitary exercise. A screenplay tends to be a lot more collaborative because there are more people who have a say in the final product. There's a director, there are probably co-writers, there's a producer. There are a lot more people who have a say in that product. I don't think a book that many people have. A publisher may eventually come in, an editor may come in, but fundamentally it's a solitary job. So that's there. Last bit about your research. Your research, it depends. Like for example, when I wrote the Karachi Deception, I had to do a lot of research because obviously that's a book where 60% of the story or 70% of the story is set in Pakistan, and only 30% is set in India. And I, of course, have never been to Pakistan. So I have no idea, what Karachi looks like. And thank God for Google Maps and, Picasa and all of that stuff, which actually gave me access to, what Pakistan looked like. I'd actually spent time in Pakistan political forums, just trying to understand what are the kind of political conversations people have there. Not that a lot of it didn't make it to the book at all, but that really required a lot of research because, how long would it take if somebody were to catch a train from Islamabad to Karachi? How long would it? Yeah. So to answer your question on Karachi, so that required a lot of research. I think when it comes to Warlord of Ayodhya, practically there's nothing to research because there's practically nothing out there to research. So it's just what is there. I think Vikramaditya Veergatha required a different sort of research because it borrows from so many different mythologies and all of that. But I think research is something like you can do forever. It's like Wikipedia, right? You open a Wikipedia page and next thing you know, you could be 3 hours down Wikipedia, doom scrolling or doom clicking or whatever you might call it. So
Yeah,
it's like that.
it's a
So research
rabbit
is a
hole.
very rabbit hole. So when I started with Karachi Deception, my research page, I would research all kinds of stuff, and obviously because I found it, I would put it in the book, irrelevant stuff. My first word count for the Karachi Deception was 1,50,000 words. Imagine for a thriller. A thriller should be
Wow.
75 to 80,000 words. It was double.
Wow, it's almost double.
Because I put in everything I researched because I found it exciting. Then everyone who read it told me, all my beta readers said that your story is very good. It just takes ages to get there. And then I realized, okay, so then I cut about 50,000 words. I cut, and then of course an editor came in and chopped off another, I think about 11,000 words, and I think the end product is about 89,000 words or so. But yeah. So research is like, and the more you research, the more you find, and you want to put that in and put this in and put all kinds of stuff because obviously it's hard work. You put in all that work, so you think it's important out there. But no, I think research is you just need to research uh, just enough for you to tell the story well. That's all. I mean, because any amount of research beyond that is, if it starts boring the reader, then that research is immaterial.
So true. And while we were talking about the characters and we were talking about the narrative as well, I also wanted to ask you: is there any specific character which surprised you the most while you were writing it?
For Warlord of Ayodhya,
Yes.
I think the character that surprised me a lot was actually Sudhanva's character, the courtier. Uh, Sudhanva, apparently, there is a reference to him in the Ramayana, in the Uttarakhand. He was apparently a king or a nobleman or whatever. So I just saw the name and I said, "Chalo, isko dal dete." He was there in the Ramayana, so I'll put him there. Beyond that, there was nothing. But Sudhanva, I think, as a character, I found him a very fascinating character. I knew he was one of the people who would try to manipulate Bharat, but the degree of viciousness that that man has and the scale of his ambition is something that I didn't see coming. And when I saw it, I was like, oh man, this guy is pure poison. Yeah, so Sudhanva is a character that I really enjoyed writing. Whenever Sudhanva would come in, it's like when I write, I have quite a few readers of Veergatha who tell me that, like whenever Shukracharya, who's the Guru Mahaguru of the Asuras, whenever Shukracharya appears in Vikramaditya Veergatha, we know something major is going to happen. Because that guy is such a fascinating character. He's the guy who moves the story forward. Whenever Shukracharya comes, he's going to do something which dramatically, takes the story then one huge leap forward. So I think Sudhanva to a lesser extent is like that, and he really surprised me. So yeah, Sudhanva, yes, definitely one character that I didn't expect that much from this character. The other character I really liked is actually that of Abhisarika, the Bahalika, the woman. I really liked her. I think there's a lot of dignity about that character, and she's very self-assured, which I thought initially I knew she was going to be self-assured, but the way she has actually kind of grown, I find her very fascinating as a character. So yeah, these two characters. Now what about you guys? You guys tell me what are the characters? Because I love all my characters. So.
Actually, this morning while we were having this discussion, Sudhanva was one of the characters we were, kind of talking about as well, because we were like, okay, we have to discuss on this, and and that character actually, yeah, you were saying
And
something.
the other character I thought would have an arc is related to Sudharma, so I just don't want to give it away to people. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
So this
yeah,
happens, right? And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. I know. So I think that's one of the things that uh, So I remember even when I was I have a reader in Pune who's now a very good friend as well. So Arvind is his name. So when in Veergatha, there is a character. She is fictitious. Most of Veergatha is anyway fictitious. So her name is Pralupi, and she is Vikramaditya's stepsister. No, she's Vikramaditya's own sister, elder sister. That is a character. And I remember Arvind, he says, whenever she appears on page, my blood starts boiling. I hate
Hated
that
her.
character.
Oh my God.
Okay. And she is that sort of a character, like she walks into a room and virtually nobody knows how to deal with her. And it's not that I have actually planned it that way. It's just that is the sort of character she is. She walks into a room where Vikramaditya and all the Navratnas are there, and they're all a little wary of her. You're like, boss, you're not scared of Indra and Shukracharya and Asuras, and you're scared of this woman. She's a fascinating character and so single-minded in her agenda and will do anything. So in many ways, Sudhanva is a Pralupi-like character, will do anything to get what they want. It's that sort of a character. So yeah, I think these characters are good fun because they're so despicable. They're like that character Iago, Othello. You just hate Iago because, this guy will do anything to get what he wants. It's just like that. So yeah.
As we are talking about mythologies, we have lots of readers within the Reader Kitab community. We'd like to know, like, how if they want to start reading mythology, what approach and how to begin it. So, any approach you want to share with the Reader Kitab community members, which we can share with
So
them?
if you haven't read any mythology, I'm assuming that you haven't read any mythology, probably a good place to start is a concise version of the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. It's always good because it sets you up about, what is the kind of mythological worlds that we have in India. It gives us a great sense of the kind of mythological worlds and the kind of conflicts that exist. You get a sense about the Rakshasas, you get a sense of, the Vanars, or whatever it is. You start understanding the roles that gods play in our story. All mythology gods play a story, obviously. But I think it's a good primer. Instead of jumping right into, say, a book written by, say, me or somebody else, it's always good to know what the large mythological texts of this culture are and what are the kind of stories. Once you've done that, I think just pick up mythological books, read the back blurb, read maybe one chapter. If you like it, good, continue. If you don't like it, put it aside, pick up another mythological book. If you picked up 5 and you haven't liked any, chances are you're not likely to be interested in the genre. It's usually a good rule of thumb, 5 books in a particular genre if you don't like, and don't pick 5 books of the same author. I mean, so don't pick 5 books written by me. Because you might not just like me, but maybe you like mythological stories told by somebody else. So I think that's kind of important. I think, yeah, see the kind of stories. Again, it's important to what kind of mythological stories do you like? So, for example, do you like a very character-centric mythological story? Or do you want, epic fantasy battle sequences? So, like, for example, Warlord of Ayodhya is a more character-led story, which is a Bharat-led story. Vikramaditya Veergatha is basically it's a plot-led story. Okay, so I think a lot depends on what kind of stories. Again, if you have started with, say, the Mahabharata and the Ramayana, and if you've read the two, maybe it might be good to have your second book, which is probably something on Draupadi, a character you have read about, now a different perspective. Okay, you basically seep it into the, you don't kind of throw yourself into it. You kind of, get into the water step by step by step by step, and over a period of time you start understanding the nuances of our mythology. What are the kind of codings that we do? What does it automatically mean? Like the 3 or 4 of us, and a lot of us, when we say Rakshas, we all know what is a Rakshas, right? But if we are suddenly given a creature from Scandinavian mythology, we might not know what it is. Ye kya hai? Or from Chinese mythology or Japanese mythology, we might not know what this is. So I think a little bit of steeping into the mythological space would help. Yeah, I think that is a good place to start, and then eventually you can get to my books.
Thank you.
Definitely to your books. I would recommend very strongly to everyone.
Yeah. And you know what I mean, just one last question. I think we've already talked so much. Never felt like that. I mean, we're already 1 hour 15 minutes into the talk, and just wanted to ask you that, the language that you have used in the book is pretty high end, I would say. I would say it's very interesting. So was there a particular strategy, writing a very simple story and, bringing in very simple characters, but using a very brilliant language, to kind of, or the style of writing, let me put it that way, the way you have put in and you've written about various characters. So was it a strategic, thing?
No, I think that's the way I write. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know, because if you like it, then it's good. If it puts you off, then it's bad. But unfortunately, that's the only way I can write. I don't know. So I like Hemingway's idea of trying to, tell the story in as simple a way as possible. I don't know how to do it, or let me put it this way: this is probably the only way I know how to tell stories. I've not consciously gone ahead, so I'm not the sort of person who will write a word and then right-click and say, let me find the most difficult word for this. I don't do that. I definitely don't do that. Okay, if I can, the opposite is also true. I don't write a word and say, okay, can I find a simpler word for this? If that word sounds right there, I will leave it there. If it jars to me while I'm reading it, I will remove it. So if spectacular sounds right, I will keep it, make it beautiful or whatever. Yes. But if spectacular sounds wrong and amazing sounds better, I will put amazing there. So I think it's just that I write, as I said, I write for myself. I am my first reader, so I must be happy with it. So that's how I do it. So language is something that I don't consciously change language. I like beautifully constructed. So, like, for example, I spent a lot of time trying to figure out. I don't know if you've read both the books. If you have, like,
yeah, we have. Of course, we have.
Okay. So thanks. Thank you. So the point of when I start off Warlord of Ayodhya Resurrection, it's raining, And one of the things I really wanted to do was explore how rain changes based on mood. So Bharat's mood in rain is very different from Nandana and Dilip's mood in rain is very different from Simika's mood in rain. Bharat
Rain.
is in despair. These two are in love.
In
Simika is
romantic
in
mood.
rage. So
Right.
basically use rain to kind of see how that same rain impacts different people. So these are just things that I don't even know, like
Very brilliant,
these are things
yeah.
that give me joy, which is why I do that. As I said, I'm my primary reader. So
And I think they bring so much of joy to the readers as well, because maybe we've not looked at this way, but there is something that goes on behind, that kind of soothes you, that kind of lets you associate with that particular character, which is so important. And
right, right.
absolutely such a fascinating talk. And I can't wait for the third book, and I'm sure all the readers are kind of looking forward to it.
So
So when
but
are you releasing your third book?
I'm hoping it will happen next year because, as I said, I haven't started writing it yet. I'm so busy. In fact, all of today, which is why I told you that I would be available only after 7:30. All of today, I've been working on a pitch for something else. It's a very critical pitch, so I've been working on that. I don't know if it will happen. Let's see. But if all goes well, I will probably start writing the book by June, July, which means I can end it by the end of this year, which means sometime next year the book will be out. But what I keep telling people when they say that, when they say that, okay, we've read book 1 and book 2, now when is book 3 going to come out? How are we going to wait? I keep telling them there are 4 books called the Vikramaditya Veergatha Series. You can read them in the meantime, and then you can get back to this. So yeah, jokes apart, I'm so happy that you people have read the books, you've liked the books, and are in anticipation of book 3. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. It actually gives me and it gives all of us authors, a reason to come back and sit down and write those things that we write. While it's easy to say that I am my first reader, it's always good to know that there are so many other readers out there who like what you've done. So thank you so much for that.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Shatrujeet.
Thank you.
And truly fascinating. And I think the talk with you was very enriching, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. And I'm sure people who have missed joining us today will definitely go back and watch the this live. Also, we'll be posting it on YouTube. The last segment that we have for you is our rapid fire
Oh,
kind of a round, and
you have that one of those as well, is it? Okay, 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 okay.
it's not Kejo inspired though, but
Thankfully not.
we
As I
talk
said,
so much sense.
if
So
KJ were to ask me which Khan do you like, Shah Rukh or Salman, I would say Irfan.
And Ekta, before you ask the question, I must also call out that your talk has been so I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and it has settled some scores. Let's just say that. So I'm very happy.
and
No,
then the
no, thank you so
fire
much.
debate that we had this morning after reading the book, I mean, it was, we can't tell you how, the fireworks that we had.
And what's a reading
What?
community without without these heated discussions also?
Right,
So,
right,
Absolutely.
but
right,
you have
right.
helped us a lot. So thank you so
Okay,
much.
It was
okay,
very
okay. I will
helpful.
not get into the politics of this. You guys deal with it.
Whoever has joined us, we are interviewing this brilliant author, Shatrujeet Nath with us, today, and we're talking about his amazing trilogy, of which 2 books are already released, Warlord of Ayodhya, Rebellion and Resurrection. So check that out. We will also be posting the link of the books from where you can buy them and read them. They are such amazing books. And this interview is in collaboration with Jeko Publications and Read a Kitab. So we are extremely excited by it. And we have our last segment now. Finally, I hope Instagram behaves well, and we should be able to do this. So I just wanted to ask you, which one is your favorite book? I know it's a tough question, but yeah.
Yeah,
We know
So
that.
we are
yeah.
already done with the 2 questions. We are waiting for the last question.
So
When you were kicked
Is
out.
let's
it?
do it again. It's okay. We can always do it again. You can always stop and change.
Yes.
So
This is
yeah,
this is quite funny.
no,
So
that's
I
okay.
did
So yeah,
wonder
as I
that.
said, my
But
favorite book is Treasure Island. Maybe there are so many favorite books, but
So
Treasure
many
Island is
favorite
something
books.
that I really treasure because it's one of the first books I ever read, and it has one of my most fascinating characters, which is Long John Silver. Which what a character. So yeah, Treasure Island. Yeah, that's
The second question is around what are you currently reading?
what I'm currently reading. Yeah. So I'm reading this book called How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. I've just kind of started it, so I don't really know, I can't really recommend it one way or the other. But the one I was reading before this, and I just kind of finished, it's called Stalling for Time. And it's written by this guy called Gary, I've forgotten his name. He was with the FBI, and he was a hostage negotiator. So it's a pretty good fun read on his experiences as a hostage negotiator, and yeah, I think that was fun. So that was good. So that's something
And
I would recommend.
Nikta, I would let you take the last question because I
Okay.
took your first question, therefore.
That's okay. I mean, and it's so amazing to have you today. We would want you to recommend, give a final message to our readers, all across who are watching this, who will watch it later, and anybody who's reading. So, any book recommendations, and also something that you would want to recommend otherwise.
I think, yeah, I mean, book recommendations, there are just so many books out there, and it's so hard to kind of, pick one book at the cost of so many other good books. But, some of the books that I've completely loved, and, and this is in no particular order, and I'm sure that after this is over, I'll be kicking myself for not having named 6 other books. But, there are just top of my mind, the books that I've completely loved when I've read them. One is The Day of the Jackal by Frederick Forsyth. I love that book. One is The Spy Who Came In From the Cold by John le Carre. And I think The Spy Who Came In From the Cold and The Day of the Jackal were kind of my, I won't use the word templates, but things that I would keep in mind when I was writing The Karachi Deception, because those were my model spy stories or thriller stories. In fantasy, I completely love this book called Perdido Street Station by China Miéville. Outstanding, world building, outstanding. It's a heavy book. It doesn't have many fans. It is very polarizing, let me put it that way. Either people love it or they hate it. But it's one book I've loved. I love The Devotion of Suspect X by Kigo Higashino.
Wow.
Completely love it. I love Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I love virtually everything by Bill Watterson, Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin and Hobbes is one of my all-time favorite.
All-time
Yeah,
favorite.
I just love Calvin and Hobbes. Yeah, so these are just some of the books, Three Musketeers by Alexander Dumas, 20,000, Around the World in 80 Days. What a fantastic adventure that is,
Yeah,
those are
absolutely.
great fun stories to tell, those are there. Of late, there are books like there's the series called the Gentleman Bastard series by Scott Lynch, Lives of Locke Lamora, and that's a great series. What else is there? There's this nice book called there's this nice author called Paolo Bacigalupi. Uh, he's got some good stuff in contemporary fantasy. Dan Simmons has some really good books. There's one called now the name fails me. That was good. There was very recently. I must also tell you that I read this very interesting book called 4 and 20 Blackbirds. Written by this guy called
Yeah.
Godfrey Pereira, about this smuggler who sets up base off the coast of Bombay just after
Yes.
independence. Fascinating story. Yeah, I just love that. Yeah, so there are just so many books out there that are so good, and yeah, as I say, I'm sure. Oh, there was the other one that by Bradbury, something wicked this way comes. What a fascinating book. Needful Things by Stephen King. Misery by Stephen King. Yeah, there are just so many books out there which are like.
I'm sure you have bloated all of our TBRs and all the people who
Yeah.
are noting it down.
Yeah, what
So,
else to say? Yeah, just read. Yeah, have fun. Read what you want to read. If you don't like a book that you're reading, set it aside. Read something else, because that book can really pull you down and get your reading average down like nobody's business. So, yeah, there are books that don't work for us. I won't say they're bad books. They're just books that don't work for us, and if they don't, they don't. I mean, there's nothing called a bad book or a good book. I mean, you would read a book and love it, and I would read a book and hate it. It's the same book. The only thing that's changed is you and me, right? So,
Yes.
so there's nothing. The book in itself is neither good or bad. It's just what we brought to the book, or what we took away from the book is what it is. So, yeah.
That's an amazing perspective to look at.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been
thank
an
you.
absolute
So,
pleasure with being with you guys and with the Reader Kitab community. I will look for you guys, and I'll also join you guys. And
amazing.
I will probably be one of those lurkers. I'm not very active in any group, I practically don't have the time, but yeah, I'll just kind of be there. But yeah, more power to you guys. You're doing a great job by bridging us with readers, potential readers. So yeah, thank you so much for all of that.
Thank
Thank you so much. It
Thank you,
was
sir.
so enriching, and we are extremely sorry for these glitches that happened,
That's
but we
it's
had
okay.
such a fantastic time, and yeah, and we look forward to your third book, and we look forward to inviting you again, having you again, and talking to you at length about the third
Done.
book as well.
Done. Thank you
All
so
right,
much.
thank
thank
you.
you
Thank
so
you so
much.
much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. Have a
Take
great
care.
night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.